Welcome back to Metropole Business Center, and just like I've been promising right from the top of this conversation, joining me in studio to talk about a 300 million investment for startups is the CEO for Pangaea Accelerator program. But just to set the stage, according to the Deloitte Kenya Economic Outlook report, Kenyan SMEs or startups face a myriad of challenges, including inadequate capital, limited market access, poor infrastructure, inadequate knowledge and skills, and rapid changes in technology. Corruption and an unfavorable regulatory environment are also other challenges. Furthermore, in comparison to other sub-Saharan African countries, and despite Kenya Bank's improved involvement, Kenyan startups and SMEs continue to face challenges related to financing. In a bid to address the challenge of access to capital by SMEs, Norwegian-based accelerator Pangea has unveiled a scale-up program offering private funding of up to 300 million Kenya shillings and business support to enable locally funded startups to accelerate their enterprises to the next level. To talk to us about the program and how you can reap from it as a startup or small business is none other than the CEO of Pangaea Accelerator, Jonas Tesfu. You're welcome to the studio, Jonas.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. So we're talking about startups, the challenges that they're facing, including access to finance, among so many other challenges, like I mentioned in the intro. And then in comes Pangaea Accelerator program. Talk to us about the program and how does it fit into the challenges startups face and also offer solutions to basically the needs that a lot of the businesses in sub-Saharan Africa, even talking about Kenya, are going through.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very relevant question. So our mission in Pangea is connecting African startups with competence, capital, and network. That's usually the main ingredients we see as part of creating success. We've been working with about 200 startups for now by running different kind of accelerator programs. And what we realized is this: as startups are graduating from our programs, getting investments, and then out in the world, and we continue supporting them, we realize that there's a huge funding gaps where you have many startups, but not many of them become scale-ups or large regional champions. So this is when we started the scale-up program, looking at how do we become the go-to place when you want to go from seed funding, which is about $500,000 up to A round funding, which is about $3 million. And all along that journey, we are there to help you as part of securing it and making it as painless as possible, and also allowing you as a team of brilliant young local entrepreneurs to focus on growing your business rather than running around trying to chase for money.
Brilliant. So with that said then, Jonas, what are some of the initiatives, as a program you put in place? How do you make everything that you've talked about happen? How do you make sure you lift the weight off of the startup? They go through a lot of things. So here you are trying to make sure you bridge the gap between the startup, the investor, and the market. What are some of the initiatives? What are some of the programs you have in place to make sure that this actually happens?
Thank you for asking that. I mean, in this case, when we designed the program, the way we did it was we talked with a lot of startups and scale-ups. The startups are basically the younger ones, and scale-ups are a little bit more mature, just as terminology-wise. And when we talked with those more mature ones around how did you get to the stage where you got? How did you get the funding? How much time did you spend? We just realized that it was a road filled with hurdles and headaches. So then we're thinking, if this is what's going to happen with every successful business that go through our program and that we invest in, then they're now going to be in this landscape of headaches. That's when we're looking, okay, how can we structure it in a way where it could be more optimized for the resources? So we are focusing on the private investing by connecting what we call smart funding or strategic investors and doing all the heavy lifting for the startups. They need to provide the profiles and the information, but that should be it. The second thing is, as an African business, you have a lot of opportunities for different grant funding and all that, but it's super boring, takes a lot of time, and many are not good at it. So then we set up a whole system for that too. And then you have the third element, which is commercial partnership sales. Same thing here. If you have a brilliant innovation, doesn't mean that big corporates will listen to you or book meetings with you or even pushing policy or what it is. Right. As an innovation ecosystem, we can do all that. So then we also set up a specific system for how do we basically book the meetings, take the meetings, coordinate all of their sales processes as part of this program. So we're really trying to create almost like a butler service from the journey seed to A round, because we don't see why it should be the way it is now. It makes no sense. People are literally wasting their time, and we think this kind of structure would benefit, you know, all stakeholders involved.
Now, Jonas, it goes without saying that you're obviously doing brilliant work, but however, one of the biggest problems we've seen, whether you're interacting with a small business owner, a startup owner, there's a very big problem of information gap. I mean, there's this amazing initiative, like you said, it's a butler service where like they'll pretty much handhold you till you get whatever you need, but there's a lot of businesses who would tell you, we've never heard of this, we don't even know how to access this information. My question then is, when it comes to tapping into such expertise such as yours, how does a startup go about that? Who's eligible? And then is this also a limitation to particular sectors? Because you'll see certain programs will either say, oh, we're only going to deal with agribusiness. Other guys will say, oh, we're going to deal with trade. So basically, in terms of tapping into those opportunities that you've even talked about, how does one go about that? What's the eligibility? Who are you looking at?
Very good question again. I'm happy to say we are sector agnostic, meaning we're looking at all sectors. So that's good. I'm also happy to do that. Some of our programs are sector specific, but this one is not, which is very good. We're looking for strong teams. That's number one, because you're investing in people when you do early. It's really a people-to-people business. Number two is, you know, you need to solve a big problem. It needs to be a big market, and your ambition shouldn't be, I want to be a Kenyan player. You should want to have an ambition of becoming a regional player or a continental player and utilizing the Africa Free Trade Agreement and other things. So you need to have ambitions. If you have no ambition, it's not really fun to play with. Technology enabled. Use the force and the brilliance of technology to really scale your business. We're looking at, obviously, business model. It needs to make sense that, you know, money coming in and money coming out and having some profit. And then the last part is, you know, positive benefit, you know, for either society or environment. We like to work with businesses where we feel are contributing to making society better, rather than just going for those who wants to be rich and nothing else. Then for me, I feel like, you know, enter some other sector.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jonas, you mentioned, now I'd really like to get into the beef of what we're here today, and that's the 300 million Kenya shillings funding for scaling up of businesses. Talk to us about that before I even like get into too much about it. I would like to hear it from you before I even follow up with
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like a lot of money. When people hear it, it is. I mean, as a you know, for an individual, it sounds like, oh my God, you know, that's like, I would do so much for it. But if you are a growth company, you will be. It's like a person. You know, you start off as a baby, and then you need baby food, and then you become, you know, 5-year-old, and then you need different because you can digest, and you become 10-year-olds, you know, teenager, and then you become a grown-up, right? It's the same thing. And you need different kind of diets in the stages. So what happens is, as you become kind of a Kenyan champion and you're really sitting on something interesting, you want to grow as quickly as possible. And that's usually when you do your A-round investments. That's $3 million around that. But then, as you get that funding, you're not working to settle there.
Right.
Then you're working on the next phase of funding, which is probably around $10-15 million. And then you want to continue growing. So that's why I said, this funding is just a milestone on your road to success. It will not solve all your problems. And then as a program, we're not only focusing on, you know, the last A-round funding. We're also looking at how do we support you in the funding rounds before that, right? Because maybe you're a business and you don't need $3 million. You need $500,000. And maybe in 18 months you need $3 million. Great, welcome. Right? So we have an interval when it comes to investing, and it's all connected to getting business into the trajectory of growth and success. That's it. And we want to be the lead partner for it, you know, or the preferred partner.
And even as you talk about the aspect of growth, according to research, particularly within the Kenyan context, the biggest challenges for small businesses, is access to capital, scalability, which could be growth, and market. So growth is actually a big aspect in there. And you mentioned that at Pangea, when you're looking at the for the perfect candidate, you're looking for ambition, you're looking for someone who's spread themselves out, you're looking for someone who has a goal and they want to see their business get there. However, when you look at that aspect of growth and scalability, you'll meet certain people who will say, my business is just not there yet. Like, I'm just not ready to get there. How does a business know they're ready to take that next step? How soon is too soon? Or should you get into a business saying, okay, this year I'm starting up, next year I'm ready for the next step of growth, the next year I have to be here? What does that process look like?
Very good question. I would say it depends on where you are, because in Kenya, you have a much more humble culture. But if you're in Nigeria, man, you go big. You want to be continental, you know, you're thinking global from the first day. And you're born global, you know, you use these terms. So I think it's nothing wrong with having ambitions, even though you may not feel ready for it. I actually think it's positive. And if you look at what has happened in the Africa ecosystem the past years, 5 years ago, Kenya was dominating. You know, you had the branding of Silicon Savannah and everything was about Kenya, the commercial gateway to Africa. If you look at now, Nigeria pulls in more investment than Kenyan startups are doing, and they're growing much faster. So in 3 years' time, I'm wondering, will Kenya be almost like, you know, not the top players, you know, because Nigeria is now taking over. And I think one of the reasons why Nigeria is coming on strong is because of that ambition and that appetite for growth and wanting bigger and challenging themselves to think bigger. I feel like we live in a time where why think small-minded, you know? And if you're sitting on something interesting that could be scalable, go for it. You know, why settle for less? And specifically now with the Africa Free Trade Agreement, where 54 countries will work as a single market, and finally politicians are looking at how do you remove trade barriers and make it easier to enter other markets, then you definitely need to take opportunities, you know? Yeah, that's how I look at it. So I feel like stop being so humble, own up to it, and don't be afraid of trying and even failing, you know. It's okay to fail, it's okay to try, it's okay to have ambitions. You should never need to apologize for that.
But even when we talk about taking up opportunities, we've seen, and you've said it yourself, what your program does is you'll find that investor, you'll, you know, link businesses to funds. We've seen a situation where there's a business that's existent, and then there's an investor who's available, but then there's something wrong with the business. And we've had, you know, words like, oh, that business is not investor ready. First of all, how does then a business put themselves in a position to tap into all these opportunities that you're talking about, considering that even when you look at the statistics, the biggest chunk of businesses in this country are very informal in nature. Like, there's just a lot of complications when it comes to how they're operated, to when it comes to the bookkeeping, when it comes to whether they're registered or not. What would be your take on that? And also just basically businesses preparing themselves, and so that when the opportunities are available, they're ready to just dive in and take advantage.
Absolutely. I see that as one of the biggest challenges, to be honest. We do organize investor readiness courses and programs as Pangea, and the reason we do it is a lot of the entrepreneurs that are looking for funding had never talked with any investor. They don't know how investors think. They don't know what they get triggered on. They don't know what they should be saying. So what happens is they're assuming, you know, and then you have an assumption base, which is flying in the dark. And then you try, and then it's like, nope, okay, and then you try differently, you know. But the whole aspect of really educating the entrepreneurs around how does a decision-making process look like when somebody wants to invest in you, and what are the, call it investor checklist, hygiene factors you need to make sure that you need to have in place, you know. It's like getting married. It's like you have a checklist, like you don't get, like, make sure you have these things in place before you get to that stage, because otherwise your partner may not accept you or not see you as attractive, you know. But if you don't have any understanding of the opposite sex and you're just guessing, then it's also going to be tricky. When it comes to the informal businesses, yes, transparency and insight. Usually it comes down to, you know, credit scoring or understanding, like, it's actually documentation, ways of documenting. And this is why I think technology can be super interesting. Like, in India, for example, you use a lot of aggregators in informal sector. And basically what the aggregators do is they collect a lot of information. But with that information, they're now allowing those communities to access those loans. And I feel like there's a huge need for it here in Africa. Second need, cost of money is too expensive.
Right.
It's way too expensive. I mean, if you are an informal business and you want to lend money, I mean, the rent will kill you, right? So it's also the dynamic around cost of finance and how do you bring it down. So I look at investor readiness needs to, both investor readiness and providing data on informal sector are huge problems, not only for us as an ecosystem player, but I think it would be healthy to kind of, almost on television, start educating people one-on-one, what does this mean? And even for youth, you know, you can start learning this stuff already when you're a teenager.
Right.
Get that business mentality in there, I think would be a game changer. Yeah, because it's information gaps, to be honest.
Absolutely.
It's nothing to do with skills or not being good enough. It's literally that you don't speak the same language or you don't know how to structure it, and that means everything. And that will, you know.
So finally, Jonas, in summation, even as we bring this to a close, we can't talk about startups, businesses doing business without talking about the pandemic and how it has pretty much redefined how everything is being done. Businesses have been forced to close, with some having to come up with a different ballgame in terms of how they operate. So from where you're standing and from your experience, what has the pandemic revealed about how, you know, people should be doing business going forward in terms of policies that, you know, governments are putting in place to enable businesses to thrive? What would you say about the pandemic and what it has made us realize about just tapping into funds, operations, just business in general?
Wow. A lot of things, to be honest. I don't even know where to start. I feel like when the pandemic started and you didn't have any physical meetings, it was there was so much things happening. I mean, government in itself had to restructure. What about school? What about your work? What about, you know, the stores, the shops? What about your normal routines? Everything got turned upside down. And basically what you started seeing was who is adapting quickly and who is adapting slowly. So governments are usually players that takes longer time to adapt, while innovative companies are like immediately setting something up. And what you see with the pandemic is that for most businesses, it's been terrible. I mean, tourism, restaurants, bars, terrible. And I really feel sorry for you know, for everybody that it's been affecting. If you look on the other side, digital businesses, they've been striving. And if you look at Wall Street and the big tech companies, all of them, right? All of them are now the richest people in the world. So I think with every crisis comes an opportunity. And this we learn from history. I think it comes down to those that are looking at the pandemic as an opportunity and taking that opportunity, those will be the winners of tomorrow's society, 100%. And everybody sitting and waiting and complaining or trying to get back to how things used to be, they will be the loser of it. But young population is Kenya, big global crisis like this, you can actually turn it into to an opportunity, in my view.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And also because, I mean, it's been here with us for, we're over a year into it, we kind of just have to adapt and see how we have to do this. Jonas, I cannot thank you enough for making time to join us in studio to talk about everything to do with small businesses, startups, funding options available, investor options available. It's really, really been quite a great resource. Thank you very much for making time.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.
And thank you very much for watching and also being a part of this show. Remember, you can send your feedback to our social media handles at Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You've been so amazing for watching. That's where we end it today, but there's so much more great programming coming your way, so don't go anywhere.